had just finished 4 different exercises, getting our legs pre-exhausted, and I went over to the squat rack, bent down, picked up a 45, went to put it onto the squat bar, and when I did, my partner beat me to it on the other side, and he slams a 45-pound plate on the other side, shaking the squat rack, and when it shook, I noticed something coming down in the peripheral of my vision, and I realized a weight had fallen and it slammed into the middle of my 3 toes in the middle of my foot, and I felt them explode, and then I felt my foot and my shoes start filling up with blood. Hey guys, welcome in today to a quick hitter. Today I want to talk to you about what do you do if you get injured while you're working out. And guys, let me tell you something. If you do this long enough like I have, you're going to get injured. Now, I've been pretty lucky for the most part as far as injuries go for the length of time that I've been training. But I know guys that have been severely injured while they're training, and I want to give you 8 things to do today that you should do when or if you feel like you've been injured while you're training. The problem that we have as bodybuilders especially is we live with pain for so long that we don't really know when we're hurt. I tore my left lat off of the spine and didn't know that I did it until a doctor told me that I had my lat was torn, and I didn't even know it. And he told me this. He said, your problem is you've lived with discomfort in your life so long that you don't know the difference between workout pain and real pain. Now, I don't know if that applies to you, but I've been doing this so long that honestly, I didn't know my lat was torn. I just figured I had a great workout or something and I was extremely sore, but that's the way it goes. Now, the difference between that and a weight falling and just guillotining your foot is a lot different because you know immediately that you're hurt. Now, let me tell you the end of that story. That day, I was so mad because I was getting ready for a show, and it was the biggest show of my life. I knew I was going to get my pro card, and when that thing hit my foot and those toes exploded, I was just crushed, but I realized that I've got to push through this injury. I don't have a choice. I didn't have time to go get surgery, and honestly, what are they going to do? The joints at the toe were crushed, and now those toes will bend backwards, but they barely move forwards at all. And there was just nothing I could do. So I took that rest of the day off, didn't get to do all my squats, and went home and iced that foot down, and I thought about this. Now, my wife will tell you this is extreme, and most people might feel like this is extreme, but I thought, okay, wait a second. I don't push off of my toes anyway. I'll avoid squatting, but if I use a leg press, I'm going to have my feet elevated so that blood is not going to be rushing down into those toes, and I push off of my heels and the outside of my heels anyway, so I can keep my toes off of the plate of the leg press and still train. I kid you not, you can ask my wife. I went back the next day with my foot looking exactly like that because that's what it looked like. I went back the next day and finished my leg workout, and all I did was modify it. Now, there was a lot of pain with that foot, and even today, if I walk very long on it, those 3 toes really start hurting. And just like I said, they'll bend backwards, but they don't bend forwards anymore. But that was a choice I made. Now, if you get hurt while you're training, the very first thing I want you to do is stop exercising immediately. Stop whatever you're doing. I know a lot of guys get hurt while they're bench pressing. They try to extend too far, and when they do, that pec just pops. And stop immediately. When you feel the pain, don't push through. Okay? That's what a lot of us do because our mentality is we push through the pain. Well, pain is an indicator that you're hurt. Okay? So we want to stimulate not annihilate. That's what Lee Haney used to say, and I think it's good advice. So stop exercising immediately, figure out where you're hurt. Now, if you start to see discoloration in the pec or discoloration in the bicep or wherever you feel pain, then you know immediately something is wrong, okay? Because if you pop something, it's going to start bruising very quickly. So stop any exercise or activity as soon as you feel that pain, or even if you suspect you really might be hurt. The second thing I want you to do is really assess the injury, okay? Evaluate it. How bad is it? Because a lot of us really don't know. Bodybuilders are the worst at self-diagnosing. We don't know if we're hurt. We live with pain, and so what do? We self-diagnose it. It's not that bad. I'll be okay. I'm just going to work through it, okay? But evaluate it. Be honest with yourself. How bad is the injury? And you need to determine if it's minor or if it requires immediate medical attention, okay? And if it needs immediate medical attention, get to the doctor. Or if it's that bad and it's critical, get to the emergency room. Get that thing fixed if it's at all possible, if you're really that hurt, okay? So that's number one. And number two, you need to make sure that you stop exercising immediately, assess the injury. And then number three, I want you to use the RICE method. Now, you've all heard of this. If you played athletics in high school, everybody knows what RICE is. That's rest, ice, compression, and then elevation. I want you to make sure that you are doing everything you can to give that muscle, that joint, everything it needs to recuperate. Let me give you a good example. We had a guy that came to us that was at the Arnold powerlifting competition some years ago. Guy's one of the strongest guys I've ever seen. And this guy was there, and it was his turn to squat. And he had it on his back, and when he went down, he was sweating so hard that the bar slipped. And when it slipped, it caught. He was able to catch it, and he thought, well, I'll just keep going because it was a weight that he knew he could get. And when it slipped and he caught it, then the other side went, and when the other side went, it threw him backwards, and he pushed, and when he did, both legs, outer sweep, both of them, popped completely off the bone, just tore off the bone, and the middle of his quads tore right down the middle. Now, when he came to me, he said, man, I really need some help. And so he had already had surgery where they had reconnected everything. But I knew, because I've seen too many guys tear a muscle, that when that muscle is reattached, it's never going to look the same. Okay? It just doesn't. That's the way it is. But I told him, I said, okay, I will help you. And so what we did was we took him, still in a wheelchair, and we devised and designed a workout for him from the waist up. But we made sure that he kept going to his therapist to get therapy on his legs, and then we would help and follow that therapy that was prescribed by those people. And so we were able to help him, and within 1 year after popping both quads, we had him on stage and in Tennessee at Battle at the River, where he won the novice class and placed third in the open heavyweight class. And so it was a really big deal and a victory to see that guy go from that injured to where he was able to get on stage. But the most important thing to do is, if you do not feel it's that bad where you have to immediately stop and go to the doctor, then what you should do is rest that area. Let's say it's a pec, rest your pec. Don't go in and start doing flies or something else in your chest region. Give it some rest. Allow it to recover. We are terrible about not allowing our bodies to recover enough, and then what will happen is it will just pile on you, and you will get more hurt, and you could just tear that thing completely. You need to avoid any movements that worsen that injury. Stay away from the chest for a while. Do support things that you can still do to feel like you're being productive. The second thing is, we said ice. apply ice pack on that for 15 to 20 minutes every 2 to 3 hours for the first 48 hours so it reduces the swelling and the pain. And yes, you can take some ibuprofen because that does help, okay? So the third thing is compression. Make sure you're able to, if you're able to, on the area that you're hurt, use a compression bandage to minimize any swelling and help provide support for that area, especially if you're in your legs or in your arms or something like that. It's very hard to put compression on your chest, although I will tell you this, when I pulled this pec, I wore a compression shirt and it really helped me, okay? So then elevate. If you're in your legs and you're hurt, elevate the injured area above your heart level to help reduce the swelling. When I was younger, I know it sounds crazy, and I'm short, but I used to be able to dunk a basketball. I know it sounds weird, right? But I did. I couldn't do anything other than just dunk it, but I could get up high enough to dunk it. And I had mad hops, okay? And we were playing a pickup game one day, and I was 16 years old. We were playing a pickup game, and the guy came in, and he started to do a layup, and I jumped up and swatted that thing away. And I was guarding him, and we were all just hooting and hollering. I was screaming, yeah, and just, in your face, And then the next time down the court, he came over, and let me tell you something. He head faked me, and when I went up to swat that ball, I came down, and I came down sideways on my foot and destroyed my ankle, broke it, broke the little toe, the bone in the side of my foot, ended up having to have a bunch of screws in there. So what did I have to do? Well, for 48 hours, I was not even allowed to have surgery. I had to elevate and ice it. So immediately if you're hurt, if you can, wherever that is, if you can't elevate it, or make sure that you are putting ice on it, especially for the first 48 hours. Okay, so number 4, seek medical attention, okay? If you're hurt and you believe it's bad enough, or you're worried that you have a real pec tear or a biceps tear or something that could be bad, you need to make sure that you get to the doctor, okay? Make sure, because if you are worried about it, there might be a good chance that you are hurt. And wouldn't you rather have peace of mind instead of doing like a lot of us old school guys did and just push through the pain and then you end up hurting yourself even more? How many times have you seen guys have torn biceps and things like that when they had warning signs and they still push through and they pop that bicep? And let me tell you something. Once you pop a bicep, it never looks the same. You look at Tom Platz or Dorian Yates, any of those guys that you've seen tear that thing, and the bicep just never looks the same. Okay, number 5. Let's talk about number 5. This is a hard one. You need to follow medical advice. This is tough, right? You want to adhere to the guidance that these health care providers have given you. If your doctor tells you lay off the weights for an entire week, lay off the weights for a week. Okay, it's not going to kill you. Listen to your doctor. Don't go to your coach and tell your coach, hey, doc said I can't work out for a week, and the coach says, don't worry about that. We're going to train anyway. No, listen to your doctor, guys, okay? Make sure that if your doctor says lay off that chest for a week, lay off of it. Don't go doing more or trying to do a workaround on your chest because you're only going to injure yourself. Don't chance your future working out for right now. Number 6, modify your training, okay? Just like we did with numerous clients that were hurt, what we did immediately was we modified their training. So we had them go ahead and adapt their routine, or we would rewrite it to adapt to that injury. And so when you are hurt, let's say you're hurt in your chest. Now, you don't realize just how much your chest does until you have a real injury, a pull or something like that, or a slight tear. Then when you're doing other things with your arms, or you're doing other things like squatting or whatever, you will feel that you start to tense that chest up a lot more than you thought. And so you need to make sure that you are properly working around that injury. Don't risk injuring it more. Do things that are low risk but still keep you moving. So modify your training. Okay, number 7, maintain mobility. Just like we did with our guy that destroyed his legs, we were still able to maintain mobility. So if it's appropriate and you are able to perform gentle mobility things for an injured area to prevent stiffness and muscle imbalance, then go ahead and do it. Let's say you've got a pull in your legs, okay? It doesn't mean you quit doing everything unless the doctor tells you to. What you do is you lay off of that area for a few days, rest it, do everything that you're supposed to do when it comes to rice. Make sure that you've got that area properly rested, and then when it's time in a few days, just start doing some very light leg extensions just to get some blood in that area. You don't want that quad to just completely atrophy because you have completely stopped. You don't want to stop completely. Now, this sounds antithetical to what we had talked about earlier, but you have to keep moving. If you've injured your pec, you want to, after a few days and the pec is starting to feel better, you want to do very light mobility things to keep that pec moving so that, again, you are not losing your, so that you're not losing muscle size and you're not atrophying, and you want to make sure that you prevent any stiffness in the area. You want to make sure that you're still able to stretch gently that area so that that muscle, when you get back to working out and training on it full time, that muscle is not so stiff and so tight that when you come down again, you pop that pec again, or those legs, or whatever it is, okay? So important. You have to maintain mobility if at all possible. And then finally, I want you to have patience. That's so hard, man. Patience, and understand that you are not worried about just today. You want years and years of being able to lift. So all of this ego lifting and tearing things and all of that stuff, it might look good now. All of this heavy, crazy stuff, it might look good now. But eventually, you're going to get hurt, especially power lifters. Those guys get hurt all the time. And so you have to have patience for your return. Understand that your return needs to be gradual. It shouldn't be just abrupt. Okay? So work your way back into your workout once you're cleared and you're good to go. Allow adequate time for your full recovery. Reintroduce your regular exercise routine very gradually, and then make sure that you have somebody that understands what's going on with you and your body, a trainer or a coach, and they're able to help you and guide you back into full health, okay? So there you go. Those are 8 things I want you to remember when it comes to getting injured. Now, the last thing I want to tell you is it all has to do with up here in your mind, okay? When you get injured, don't go down. Don't go down. Now, I'm not talking about just physically, but a lot of guys, when they get injured, man, they go down physically, but they also go down mentally. What I'm telling you is don't go down mentally. Don't just lose it and say, oh man, it's over. No, it's not. I was in a car accident, and it was a single car accident actually. I hit something in the middle of the road that I didn't see because the car swerved out of the way, and when I hit it, the side airbag in my truck malfunctioned and blew up like a bomb, and it hit me in the back and the side of my neck. And it created this huge grapefruit-sized thing on the side of my neck and on my back. And so I had a trap that went up, and then I had another huge grapefruit-sized knot on my neck as well. And within just a few days, instead of me trying to get help on it, I was a hardhead. And so instead of going to the doctor, getting help on it, I just put ice on it, and I was back in the gym the next day. And it was scheduled for chest day, so I got up on the incline bench, 225, got a really good warm-up, put it up there, 315, another good warm-up set, put it up there, and then we went up into 400, and when I hit 405, I went up, and all of a sudden I had this lagging feeling in my left arm. And I was like, whoa, and I couldn't even get it back up. And so my partner grabs the weight, he puts it up, and he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, something's wrong. And I mean, something was really wrong. And my left arm started going numb, and all of a sudden I had this pain in the back of my neck that I had never felt before. And over the next 18 months, my left side went completely numb. It wasn't numb to where I couldn't feel anything. It was ringing. Like if you've ever had your arm or your hand fall asleep, that's the way it felt. And it was constant, 24/7, just this buzzing, ringing feeling in my hand, my arm, and my hand started turning under like a claw, and then it started retracting into my stomach. And I went to the doctor and went to a neurologist, and they said, man, you've got a problem in your neck now, and you're there. I mean, I'm telling you, and I had nerves that were pinched off and everything, and there's basically nothing they could do. And so I went to a chiropractor. That was the worst thing I could have done. I went to a guy who was a chiropractor, and he started manipulating my neck around, and before I knew it, I woke up one morning and my entire left side was completely numb, and I was even dragging my leg. Went back to the neurologist. They said, you're going to be on a walker in about a year, because my left side was just really messed up. And my arm had retracted in, and I was literally having to try to push my arm out. So I had one of two choices. In that instance, I could decide to say, I'm going to listen to the doctor and just go down. Or I've got to find a way to do a workaround and try to do something to keep myself going while I figure this out. And so what I did is I did my own research, and I found that over in Russia, they make these gigantic electrostimulators, like a TINS device, except for they're like this. And they actually have something called a Russian setting on it. You couldn't buy it in America. In that Russian setting, if you Google Russian setting or electrostimulation Russian setting, you can read all about it. But it goes deeper than any other electrostimulation than you could get here in the States. But I had to have a doctor's note or doctor's prescription for it. So I talked my doctor into giving me a prescription. He sent it over, ordered it, cost me $5,000 even back then. $5,000. I got this thing, started doing my own therapy, and 18 months after this accident of just having unbelievable amounts of pain, couldn't brush my teeth, couldn't extend my hand out to open a door, couldn't do anything, I started getting feeling back in my arm because I was using this electrostimulator all over my left side. Now, the day I got feeling back in my hand was on my birthday, oddly enough, and I went straight to the gym, and I started doing a little more, and working my way through. I was able to work my way back to competition and winning my pro card. Now, the odd thing is eventually this left tricep stopped working. And my left pec doesn't work very well because now, for some reason, the nerve damage has just gotten to where it's just kind of taken over. And so now I just try to maintain somewhat of an even physique, okay? So what I'm saying is this. Guys, a lot of this battle is going to be in your head. Do not lose the battle here, because if you lose the battle in your mind, you're going to go down and you'll be done. Okay? If you take what everybody says and they constantly tell you you can't, then you never will. I want you to enjoy a lifetime of working out and health, not just train for today. Train for today, train smart, and if you get hurt, be smart, don't be a fool, and hurt yourself more. That's today's quick hitter. Thanks for coming in.